Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and this is part 2 in my search for Howard Wiliams, the young man who is in the scrapbook that I have had for so many, many years. Now, I want to continue this because as I left off in part 1, I brought the book to Chicago, and it started to talk. I was with my friend Terry Olds, and we were talking and looking through things, and suddenly, if by magic, everything started to fall into place. You know, sometimes it takes a few extra brains to do things, you know. I knew about Howard. I have lived with Howard for nearly 26 years. I have known him and learned all about him reading this book, wondered about him. And I never could quite figure out what happened to him. And now that I know, it's brought a whole new chapter to this, but also in a sense it's pretty sad to find out. Because, as I said, the Wiliams family has become part of mine. They have been with me for so many years, for over a quarter of a century. And so to find that one suffered so much in a horrific death, it's a very sad, sad thing. With that being mentioned, it's time to talk about why this book exists in the first place. Howard's mother, I didn't talk about her before. It's time to talk about her. Inez Fulmer Wiliams. She was born in 1863 and died in 1928. She was the second wife of John Harvard Wiliams. His first wife passed away. And she's the mother of Howard and Margaret. Now, I would imagine someone as precocious and brilliant as little Howard was, I gotta tell you, some of the stuff this kid was doing. He was writing letters to the President of the United States. He was doing speeches for his school. He was doing artwork. He would make pictures. He would do all kinds of neat stuff. He was obviously a fascinating kid. And he went to the Lewis Institute in Chicago, graduated in 1902, and then he was accepted at Cornell University, where he was going for a degree in the art department, which we think might have been maybe in some form of industrial art. He was a member of the track team, also basketball. Was liked and known to be very clever, a great speaker, a great talker. And after his death, I have found in Cornell newspapers talks about Howard and how his classmates got together and wrote up a paper about him, how much they respected him. And they sent that back home to his parents in Chicago. Now, why does this book exist? This book is a combination of love, sorrow, anger, absolute pain that a mother went through at the loss of her son. This book was written, or I should say was all put together, I believe, after Howard's death. It's not in any kind of chronological order. It's a memorial to a very gifted young man. Now, I want to tell you several other things about this. I have many thoughts about what happened to this Wiliams family. It's very difficult. This all happened well over 112 years ago, going on 113 this year. This scrapbook is full of all kinds of theater programs, all kinds of various entertainments, of which Howard and his mother would go to quite often. And as time went on, his sister. There's a few where their father would go. When Howard is killed in the Iroquois Theater fire, which was a worldwide event, you have to understand, 602 people were killed, mainly children. It was the worst fire in a theater that you can imagine. And it was purely criminal what happened. The owners were criminal. The builders were criminal. There was so much graft and corruption. Inspectors in Chicago would take tickets rather than inspect. There was no fire systems. There was nothing. No sprinkler systems. And the theater was open on a matinee with Mr. Bluebeard, a comedy. And the theater could hold 1,600 seats. There was well over 2,000 people in that theater, standing room only. Howard and his girlfriend, which we don't know her name, not yet. I don't know if we ever will. I don't know if she survived. They went to see Mr. Bluebeard. You know, they weren't planning on going to that. He was going somewhere else, and his mind was changed. Maybe she suggested he should go. Who knows? We have no idea. But Eddie Foy was the star of it. And this fire, when it took place, the exits weren't set up properly. People were trapped. And the worst place to be in that theater was the balcony, because the fire was on the stage, started by a lamp, amazingly. And someone opened up the scenery doors in the back to let people on the stage escape, which was wonderful. But by doing so, it created the perfect flue like a chimney. And a massive ball of fire flew out from the stage, superheated, and went right into the balcony, killing hundreds, asphyxiating them, burning them to death. It was horrific, and those that didn't die initially, like animals, were running around tearing at each other trying to get out, and they couldn't. It's probably one of the most horrific things you can imagine. And as I said, 602 people were killed. The fire, Howard's death, totally transfixed a family. This book is pure pain. You can feel the pain when you look at it. You can feel the love, the pain, the loss, the absolute heartache of a family. Nothing happens for a long, long time with this book. Now I want to show you some stuff before I go any further. It all starts off with a message from the mother to Howard on his first birthday. And below it is something Howard did as a boy. He wrote his name on it. And there's other stuff here that, you know, a letter he did to Santa Claus. And there's a little thing with a lobster he drew in 1900. In fact, he had a little poem. He did a lot of little poems. They're kind of clever. And it goes this way. The lobster. Booze to me only with thy lamps, and I will clutch thee with my clamps. Howard, 1900. Very fascinating kid. And as I said, this is very much a memorial to him. Let me show you this other stuff in here that's just fascinating. This kid was very young, but he was already doing incredible things. This is a program in which he was involved in speaking. He decided to become a photographer as a kid. I guess it's a fun thing. He wrote a letter to his father, and it says, "To Mr. J.H. Wiliams, dear sir, In the undersigned, wish to inform you that if enclosed blueprint and photograph were taken, developed, and printed by the undersigned and Harry B. Sutton, and would like you to inform Mrs. J. H. Wiliams that I have made arrangements to go down to town with her for a reason known to her, and only to her, this Wednesday of this week. Howard Wiliams. And he marks on the bottom of it, photographer. And below that is a wonderful letter he wrote to President Cleveland. And it's so cute. And this kid was so unique. You kind of get a sense of this. And I admired him. When I first found this and I started to read this stuff, I sat there and said, what an amazing kid. And here's a letter he wrote to President Cleveland at the age of 9. And it says, President Cleveland, Chicago, October 30th, 1895. Our dear President, we would like your consent to have another regiment in the U.S. Army made of boys only. So far, we have armed ourselves with bows and arrows. We want this to keep off the boys that swear. Yours respectively, Colonel Howard J. Wiliams, 213 South Seavitt Street, and Major Harry B. Sutton, 234 Seavitt Street, both 9. Oh, and it says, P.S. At present, our barracks are under our front steps. We trust that you will help us into better quarters for the winter. Lots of things he drew, and this is kind of a fun thing also. Beware the Boy. And this is a program that he was involved in. And this is the self-portrait that he did when he's about 9 years old. And this is a lot of his notes and papers. And he wrote poetry, and it's wonderful stuff. And of course, he spoke before the class in 1897, and this is the notes for that. And fun stuff, a bill to his mother for babysitting and everything else, and taking care of everything. Comes to 15 cents altogether. And lots of other stuff. I have to tell you, there's even little newspaper articles talking about Howard. Now, I must tell you that when that terrible fire took place, it was worldwide news. This is the Illustrated London News with pictures. And actually, right up here, if you see this really burned up area, that's the balcony. That's where Howard was. Also, at the same time, this is a book that came out right in 1904 all about this. It mentions Howard's name in it, but it gives him the wrong age. It says he's 18. He was 17 years old. And just a few other things to mention to you. With the help of a number of people. First off, I want to mention Judy Cooke. She has a website dedicated to the Iroquois Theater fire. And another thing just to mention rather quickly is Terry Olds has written up a website all about Howard. There's a lot more I'd like to say about Howard, a fascinating kid. It's a sad part in this family because I watched, in a sense, reading this book, I see how this family kind of fell apart. And part of that family just seemed to die and never came back. Well, that's enough for right now. And I hope this has opened up a little bit of a world, because it's opened a world up for me ever since I made this discovery here. And so it brings to mind how important history is, and how important so many wonderful things are find the stuff, share it, and it never stops teaching you. So thank you very much. And thank you, Howard.